All rise. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia is now in session. L'audience au Tribunal Penal International pour l'ex-Yougoslavie est ouverte. Please be seated.
Good morning to everyone in and around the courtroom. Madam Registrar, would you please call the case?
Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, everyone in and around the courtroom. This is the case IT-0690T, the prosecutor versus Gotovina et al.
Mr. Mistic, are you ready to proceed?
I am, Mr. President.
Please do so.
Thank you. Good morning again, Your Honors. Picking up where I left off yesterday on the burden of proof, I do wish to add one point, and that is to ask the trial chamber to carefully review the prosecution's final brief and final argument to determine whether they've actually applied the right burden of proof to the arguments they advance. Indeed, at trial, it would occur that the prosecution would examine witnesses without regard to the proper standard of proof. See, for example, the cross-examination of Professor Korn, transcript 21481, lines 14 to 16. If you turn to page 514 of the prosecution's final brief, the prosecution says, even defense expert Korn, who believed it was not Gotovina's intention to shell whole towns, acknowledged that a reasonable interpretation of Gotovina's order is an order to conduct an unlawful attack on those towns. Of course, what the prosecution has to prove is the inverse. That is that Professor Korn's interpretation is unreasonable, and the prosecution's interpretation is the only reasonable interpretation of the evidence. We also ask you to check through some of the murder schedules the prosecution appended. See, for example, Annex B, page 27, where the prosecution says the cause of death is unknown, but possibly the victim sustained gunshot wounds. Or FC 283, Annex B, page 11. The witness was probably executed by HV policemen. So we ask you to carefully go through the brief, because it does not appear on its face that the prosecution applied the right burden of proof, nor did the prosecution claim in its brief that it was applying the right burden of proof. In an effort to convince you that you should not believe your own eyes concerning the express orders of General Gotovina and the entire Croatian leadership to prevent and punish crime, the prosecution provides the following remarkable statement in its final brief, which is tremendously insightful in unraveling the essence of the prosecution's case against General Gotovina. We can show paragraph 15 of the prosecution's brief. JCE members were able to issue generic instructions to prevent or stop the looting and burning, secure in the knowledge that such instructions would be ineffectual, thereby intentionally permitting and condoning crimes while simultaneously creating the false impression that they did not intend them. Your Honors, we give you the simple answer. States and armies give orders because they want them followed. Croatia was no different. Croatia had given similar orders during Operation Flash only 3 months earlier, and as explained in our brief, Croatia was praised by the Secretary General and the representatives of the international community, including witness Galbraith, who on the 1st of August told President Tudjman that Croatia's conduct in Western Slavonia, quote, earned him tremendous credit. The Secretary General praised Croatia for its efforts to protect the human rights of Serbs in Western Slavonia. You've seen that in our brief. Why, therefore, Croatia would be, quote, secure in the knowledge that such instructions would be ineffectual, when in fact 60 days earlier they were effectual, is not explained by the prosecution. However, I am certain that in rebuttal, the prosecution will come up with a creative conspiracy theory to explain that as well. The Gotovina defense will advance the simple and straightforward explanation of that evidence. The prosecution desperately tries to crawl out from under the overwhelming weight of the evidence of the efforts of the Croatian authorities, including General Gotovina, to prevent and punish crime by arguing that their orders to stop criminality were fake orders not intended to be implemented. Yet they offer no evidence in support of that radical inference. You have not seen a single presidential transcript of secret conversations where someone suggests that orders should be issued but not enforced. No witness testified that they ever heard a suggestion even that fake orders be issued for the benefit of the international community. Indeed, the prosecution offers you nothing in terms of evidence that would allow the chamber to cast aside express orders in favor of a radical inference. Indeed, as we point out in our brief at paragraph 375, the Blaszkic Appeals Chamber expressly rejected the use of unsubstantiated inferences to disregard express evidence in the record. The prosecution yesterday tried to distinguish the Blaszkic precedent on drawing inferences. It cannot. The fact remains, and the law remains, you cannot use unsubstantiated inferences to draw an inference to cast away express evidence to the contrary. And that is the case here. Whether the trial chamber could draw an adverse inference if there was evidence of that inference in the record is not an issue that arises in this case. Thus, the prosecution's reliance on Milutinovic is misplaced. In Milutinovic, the trial chamber determined that the accused Pavkovic issued phony orders to adhere to international law on the basis of specific bad acts by that accused that were contrary to the orders he had issued, such as using units in combat against the express orders of his superiors, omitting relevant knowledge of criminal events from his reports, deliberately underreporting murder incidents to his superiors despite having an express obligation to do so. Here, there is no evidence of any such bad acts by General Gotovina or President Tudjman. In fact, the express evidence in the record can only lead you to the inference that the highest officials in Croatia, including the named members of the alleged JCE, wanted crime to stop and issued orders to make it stop. The internal conversations of the Croatian authorities, to which the international community, the media, and any outsiders were not privy, demonstrate that the Croatian leadership established a policy to stop all crime and, in fact, issued orders to stop that crime. See, for example, P463, a private conversation between Radic and Tudjman, two named members of the JCE, where they condemn burning as the worst evil. See Prime Minister Valentic's comments in a closed session government meeting on the 23rd of August. That's D426, page 21. Quote, special care has to be provided to the Serb population. You've seen General Gotovina berating his troops on the 6th of August on the Knin meeting video. Again, a private meeting. And if we look on the screen, P918. This is the political affairs warning issued within the chain of command, telling subordinates, we can scroll up these. In that second paragraph, after condemning crime, says, following the policy of the Supreme Commander, Dr. Franjo Tudjman, as well as the instructions of the Defense Minister and the political administration of the Defense Ministry of the Republic of Croatia, it is necessary to immediately prevent the following: the continued torching and destruction of facilities and property, the killing of livestock, the confiscation of property, and inappropriate conduct toward remaining civilians and prisoners of war. How the prosecution could say you should draw an inference, and not only an inference, but that the inference they suggest is the only reasonable inference that you can draw on the evidence, is unexplained by the prosecution. It is clear that these are the private conversations, private messages being sent within the Croatian government. That is what the policy is. You have absolutely no evidence from the prosecution whatsoever that would contradict this message. A note from someone saying, relax on enforcing orders. Don't be in a hurry to investigate. With respect to every single important issue in this case, Your Honors, General Gotovina has asked you to take the simple explanation. And the prosecution has done the opposite. Let's take a look at what each party says on the key issues in this case. The first issue I would like to address is paragraphs 121 and 352 of the prosecution's final brief. The prosecution in its final brief has for the first time added a new allegation of General Gotovina's participation in the alleged JCE. Now it is alleged that one of the 4 ways General Gotovina participated in the JCE was by ensuring that General Chermak became the primary conduit for the complaints and queries of international officials, and that he did so by telling General Ferrand on the 8th of August